Hi BookTube, welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and I'm going to do a video where I share my Stephen King books, because my last one got taken down because there was something on the video, a link I posted on the video that did not follow the guidelines of YouTube, like there was something like spam or something. The problem is that was a 3-year-old video, so I don't remember. So I'm going to try to film a video similar to that again. And hopefully I won't accidentally break the rules again, and there won't be anything on the video that YouTube will feel the need to where it will get taken down. So that was my Stephen King. It was my Stephen King collection video. And I think it had something. I think it had to do with Facebook that was on there. That was breaking the rules. Okay, so I will start sharing you my Stephen King books that I have over the years. I am doing it this way because all my Stephen King books are here, and I have so many that I don't want to take them all down. Now, I did have a copy of Danse Macabre, but I recently learned that as much as that's not one of the better books that covers the horror genre, surprisingly. And I could always buy a different copy, and because it was a mass market copy, I saw it at the roast office. It was the only Stephen King books they had, because people don't like to donate their Stephen King books. They don't want to get rid of them, which I don't blame people. But, so I got it because I remember hearing about it, but then I heard from Josh's Book Voyage, that it wasn't the best, and there are better books that cover the horror genre and explain it better, the history of it. And that one is like, because he wrote it in the 80s, so there's so much more out there, more horror out there. So as far as movies, so I don't think it's the end of the world. And I mean, I guess this means Stephen King's not an auto-by-author, because I won't read everything by him, but he is, I still personally consider him a favorite, even if I don't read everything by him, because I still want to read a lot of his stuff. I did used to have copies of Desperation and Sleeping Beauties 11/22/63, and then 4 Past Midnight, and The Talisman, and all those, and they're still actually here in the corner behind the other shelf. They sort of in the shot. This is next to this shelf on the other side, but they're either mass market or hardbacks. And with Stephen King books, I'm trying to switch most of them out for all of them out for regular size paperbacks. And his books are long and dense, so I'm showing you the ones that I do have that I was able to collect. So it feels like I don't have as many of his King's books, but I really do have a lot. It's just some of them I'm switching out for regular size paperbacks. This is one of the ones I ended up having to switch out, and it's still my favorite. It was my first Stephen King read, next to the Dark Tower series, and I obviously still love it. I still hold a place in my heart for it, and I love both adaptations. I kind of lean towards the newer ones, because it was a 2-parter. I understand, though, of course, people are loyal to the original, and I'm not saying the original, I don't love the original. It's just, I kind of, like I said, lean towards the new adaptations. But this is a story about this town of Derry, Maine, that is haunted by this evil monster that takes on the form of whatever you are most afraid of. And he especially goes after kids who are easier to scare. And he eats them and hibernates for 27 years. And these one group of kids who call themselves the Losers Club, although I think it starts with the bullies calling them the Losers Club, and then eventually they take on the name, claim the name for themselves. And they're all outcasts in their school, and they're bullied for different things, and they come together. They are the only kids who are able to defeat it. And actually, I watched an interesting video where, like, history explained kind of video or something, where the guy was talking about how these 7 kids might have the shine. And if you read The Shining and then Doctor Sleep, or at least if you read The Shining, that explores, that's where that is introduced, that concept of having a shine is introduced. It's like, kind of like having a psychic power, like having a sort of psychic energy. And he writes a lot about that, especially with kids. And they don't have psychic powers like Charlie McGee or, I'm trying to think of some of the other kids. I know there's a kid with a psychic power in the Institute, or Annie in the Rose Red screenplay. But there is a little bit, that video talked about how they might have a little bit of shine to them, because there's certain aspects of the shine that these 7 kids have. Which I love that he created his own, Stephen King, while writing books that were different, each one of them were different, he links them together. He creates his own universe. Which there's a book that I have on my Amazon wishlist that does explore that, like really dives deep into that, how Stephen King create his own world. Like, yes, each of them is about a different thing, but there are so many concepts and links to each of his stories. Like in 11/22/63, Beverly and Richie are in there because our main character travels through the main character in that book travels through time, and he stops by Derry. That's another thing he does, is all his books, a lot of his books, not all of them, there are some that takes place in different places. But in the screenplay, Rose Red takes place in Seattle. But most of his books takes place in Maine, particularly either in Derry or in Castle Rock, which I think Castle Rock is a real place, I think. I'll have to double check on that. But I think Derry was inspired by Bangor, Maine, I think, or some. But I also don't think Misery takes place in Maine. I have to check on that one too. But it's still my all-time favorite. It's like is about friendship and fear, and how vulnerable kids are to fear, and they're coming together, and their bond. And just it's such a cool story. And I know that and as I say in every one of my videos where I talk about this, there is the infamous scene with the kids that will never be put to screen. It's just a very uncomfortable scene, and you question Stephen King's sanity for putting that in there. And it does knock down some points for appeal of this book, that scene, which for me didn't, but I understand why for most people it does. It's a scene that it's just weird and uncomfortable. It's like, why did you put that in there? It's just too much. But yes, I still love this book. I love this cover. You know, I used to have I had the original Mass Market. I wish I could show you that on screen, but I don't know how to do that kind of stuff. Like where I show you those kinds of things. But it's a blue cover. It's a kind of a dark bluish cover with like a clown on there. But it's the clown doesn't look like Pennywise. It's just a different clown, I think. I mean, it's hard to tell with the color that they use, but the color palette for the cover of it. Yeah, but I love this book, and I love both adaptations. It's still my all-time favorite. Oh, and it does take place in the 50s, so unfortunately there is racism in the book, and at least half the book takes place in the 50s, and then the other half takes place in the late 80s, early 90s. So sadly, there's still racism. There's suggestions of sexual abuse or just abuse in general. I recently, when talking about this book, because I was watching videos on the recent adaptation, and there was a discussion of one of the characters, the one girl in the group, and something about her dad potentially being either was he sexually abusive or not. But there's a lot of dark shit in this book, but this is also Stephen King, so. Oh, stay. And actually, look, I even have both Pennywise. Oh. I even have both Pennywise Funko Pops. This is the 1990 miniseries adaptation, played by Tim Curry's version, which I think a lot of people prefer his version. I like both, but I kind of do like this version a little, just a tiny slither more, which this is Bill Skarsgård version. He is the younger brother of, he's the son of Stellan Skarsgård, the younger brother of, he played Eric on True Blood. I cannot remember his name. He's the younger brother of that actor. I cannot remember his name. But yeah, I like both versions. I kind of like this one a little bit more, but I still have a soft spot for this version. And both have their faults. Both movies have their faults. Like, they don't include, there's stuff they don't include. You know, they have to pick and choose. Okay, let me make sure there's nothing that prohibits. Oh, this is not Stephen King, but he did the introduction for this classic. Matthew Lewis is the monk. So, that's kind of what motivated me to try it out, this book. Just making sure there's nothing. I don't think so. I don't think there's any books in here. Okay, so let's see. I'm trying to grab the ones that are easy to grab. Okay, so let's start with this one. I just read this one this year, Firestarter, about a girl who's a pyrokinetic because her parents were injected with the serum that gave them psychic powers. And which I'm curious, going by that video I watched her talk about the shine, I'm wondering if Charlie has the shine, or maybe she doesn't, because well, I don't know. That's something I want to explore. Characters that have the shine in the Stephen King world. Because it's kind of like, it's debatable, I feel like, with that, because, you know, is psychic powers like the ultimately means you have a shine, or is that just you have psychic powers and not necessarily that you have the shine? And this also kind of is like, is a really fun book, very intense. I love the father-daughter relationship in here. It's really sweet, very endearing. I have a love-hate relationship with one of the characters. He's a Native American. He's kind of the muscle of this government agency, but he's also really smart, and he pretends to be the dumb muscle Native American character, but he's actually highly intelligent and manipulative. Like, he manipulates Charlie so much in this book. But for a second, I always think, oh, maybe he'll turn around and actually be a decent guy, and he's not. But he was such an interesting character. He was like my favorite antagonist. Wish I can remember his name. And this really explores the fears and paranoias of, you know, like what the government might be doing. Like, the government might be doing something, like people's, but it's so cool and it's so fun. And he actually, King talks about how he had a lot of help because he's 2 sons and a daughter, Naomi. I don't know if his daughter writes. I can't remember if I read that she wrote books like the rest of the family, but, she helped him create Charlie and make her realistic. So obviously Stephen King, when he writes kids characters, I think he does have some help, you know. And I imagine it's hard writing for the opposite sex. I mean, I think it's possible, but I think it is a challenge, and you have to really do research and understand the opposite sex, and really understand would they do this or say this, you know, and try not to make them act like your ideal version of the opposite sex. because of course I think both men and women have an ideal version of how they want their, their girlfriend or boyfriend to be, or, or the, the various men and women that come into their life. I think a lot of times we have an ideal version of that, of an image of how we think they are, and it might not be the most accurate, because I mean, we don't always understand each other. We'll probably never be able to understand each other, not completely. But yeah, Firestarter is really fun. It's very fast paced, and I like exploring the idea of if you were a child with a psychic power, how to handle that. Like a power that can be dangerous. If you have a temper tantrum, you could set something on fire. Like one of your toys, or your loved one, like your parents, or a friend, or you could accidentally kill a bully at school that you don't like, that makes you angry. It's a scary thought for someone so young. I have not seen the adaptations yet. I know that of course people are of course I've heard that the most recent adaptation, because it's been adapted before, I think in the 90s. But the most recent adaptation with Zac Efron is Andy McGee, her father, Charlie's father. Because this is the movie adaptation, tie-in edition. That it's not as good, so I haven't watched it yet. I will watch at some point just to see for sure. I need to watch it soon before I forget the book. Yeah, this was really fun. This was one that I had another copy of it. I had a mass market copy. Stain. Okay. And then we have The Stand. Again, another one where I switched up the copies I had. The Stand, and I've not read this. This is going to be adapted, or has been adapted. Like they're working on it, or it has come out. I don't know. I have to check on that. But they had adapted it before into a miniseries, which I have that. But I'm trying to wait to watch both either way. But this is, like I said in the previous video, this is a long ass book. I don't know which one's longer. I don't know if this is longer or it is longer. I think it might be longer. It's one of those end of the world stories, like where something happens to wipe out all of humanity. It's so, like, a lot of people, you had your people that either were inspired to read something like this with COVID-19 going around, or people that were like, that's the last thing I want to read right now. But it's another one that explores good and evil, and it's, again, another one with a huge ensemble cast of characters, and actually, which is funny, because Bill's brother, I wish I could remember his name, because then he plays Eric in True Blood, but he's gonna be the antagonist in this book. So funny, both Skarsgård brothers were in a Stephen King adaptation. But yeah, this looks so, like, it's so good. It's long. I did restart it, so as of this edition, I am on chapter 3. That's the problem with restarting these books, because I can't always, with Storygraph, I can't upload as easily. But with, the only solution would probably be to remove the book and start over. But with Goodreads, I can go backwards and start over when updating and tracking how much I've read. But with Storygraph, I can't do that, because it has to be numbered. It has to be pages ahead. I can't go back. So unless I remove the book and start over, it's hard to update until I've caught up. And I got a good amount of pages into it the first time. But yes, this is really But what I remember reading so far was really good, and really we dive deep into the characters, like all of his books. It was really fun when I read it. It's a long book, and I got restless. I don't want to say bored because I wasn't bored, and I feel bad whenever I say I was bored with something unless I just genuinely don't care. But I was not bored. I got sidetracked. So there's that. It's here because it feels more science fiction-y than horror. It's down on this shelf with my sci-fi books because it feels more science fiction-y with the end of the world and the thing that whatever wiped out the end of the world. So I don't know if you can see it, but right, let's see, okay, let's see. Let's see, is it? Where am I sitting around? Oh, okay, so it's this way. Right there is my Dark Tower series. I don't have all the books yet. I'm close. I'm on book 6, so I do need to buy 7. I even have the prequel book. But it's a different cover than what I have here. But I really like the covers that I have. I did have one cover that I thought was pretty cool for book 5, but it didn't match my others. It was kind of like something out of a comic book, the image for book 5, but I recently got rid of it. I don't know if it's been removed, if it's not in there, and if I already took it to the roast office or not. But like, let me show you. I don't know, dumb Jack Sparrow. Oh, dang it. Sorry, Jack. See, I really like the color palette of these covers. And just the design and everything I think is really cool. This is the Gunslinger, the first book, which is, I think in the series is everybody's least favorite. Which is funny, most of the time people say, you know, I want to get into the story right away, and I don't want it to be like, oh, it gets better over time, you know. I want it to get better right away and be good right away and not, but I think after book 2 is when it does get good in book 2. But I actually like this one. I don't see why people didn't like this one. I'll have to, watch reviews, but I actually really enjoyed this one. Rereading the first time around I didn't love it, but that was more probably not the same reason other people didn't love it. I think it was more just I didn't care for the Western setting at the time. And I was kind of bored. Again, I hate saying I was bored with something, but I was at the time, but now I'm not. And I loved this first book. I had a good time with it. I don't see anything inherently wrong with it. See, that's my problem with reviewing, is like, I keep thinking, like, if it's a book that a lot of people universally don't like, and I enjoy, I'm like, okay, what am I missing here? Why do all these other people don't like it? Like, what is about this book? And I look at reviews, and sometimes I understand it, why people don't like it, and other times I'm like, I still don't get it. What's wrong with the book? And, but even Stephen King himself was not happy with this book. He thinks it's not a good first book, I think, but I like it. Like I said, I don't want to take them all down because there's 6 books. And kind of for a similar reason why I just moved my camera over here, because I have so many Stephen King books now that I don't want to take them all down. Because even just taking only a handful of books on my shelf can kind of mess it up. And obviously, as you can see, I don't necessarily have the space. So there's 7 books. There's The Gunslinger, The Drawing of 3, The Wastelands, Wizard and Glass, which is actually, people say you don't necessarily have to read that one because it's not part of the main story. It's really the main character telling his companions a story, so you don't have to read it, but I'm going to because it's part of the series and I never have read book 4. I only read the first 3 books, and then I started Wizard and Glass, but then I put it down for a long period of time. So Wolves of Cal is book 5, Song of Susanna is book 6, and then there's a 7th book, which is called The Dark Tower, which I guess they get to the Dark Tower, which is our main character's main goal, is to get to the Dark Tower. And then the prequel is The Wind Through the Keyhole. Captain Jack. Which our main character is Roland. That's his name. I couldn't think of his name for a second. It's kind of a story, I think, about him and his childhood, possibly. Okay, so next, let me take it down, or let me move it. Now this is his works that were not under his name, but under his pseudonym. Sorry, it's just, you can tell this is old, because I bought it used because of this. His Bachman books. He wrote under the pseudonym Richard Bachman, but then someone exposed him, and he had an answer to that. He had a response to that with one of his books, which is one of my favorites, and there it is. But I haven't read any of these yet. But I debated about getting another copy. But this has The Rage, The Long Walk, which actually, I could probably do the Stephen, because there is a Stephen King book tag. I mean, while I'm here, I think I might call that up. And I don't have to bring the books over because I'm already over here. So I might do that next. I might film that. This has The Rage, The Long Walk, Roadwork, and The Running Man, which I think The Running Man was made into a movie with, what is his name? The guy who played the Terminator, or like, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think he was in the Running Man adaptation. So those were kind of a different type of stories, like less supernatural. But like I said, someone's exposed him, and so he had a response to that, though. I haven't read any of these yet, but he had a response to that, actually. I think I gotta take this guy down. I gotta take it down. Oh, he didn't want to. Okay. Sorry about this guy. Sorry, it's being difficult. Dang it. Get in there. Okay. Oh, and great. Now I'm making this worse. Okay. I ripped that off. Let me find the book I was. Oh, maybe not that one. This was actually his response book to when he got exposed as Richard Bachman, because, see, this is about a writer who gets kidnapped by his biggest fan, and she holds him hostage because she doesn't like what he did in one of his stories, which is killing off her favorite main character and not writing the books anymore. And she finds him conveniently. She crosses paths with him, and she, quote-unquote, nurses him back to health and holds him hostage. Like, I'm not saying letting you go until you write a book for me that is about this character and bringing her back. There was a movie adaptation with Kathy Bates, which I'm sure she did a brilliant job. I actually have not watched it. And Michael Kahn, which the author's name, I was about to call him Sheldon, but the author's name is Paul Sheldon. But James Caan not Michael, James Caan plays Paul Sheldon. But this one is a different kind of creepy. You know, it's not a monster. This is one of his books where the monster is actually a human being, and saying how humans can be just as scary as someone with fangs or with claws. Now I used to Pet Cemetery, which is another one of those where it was more about humanity, but there was kind of a monster in that one. I did not keep that one because I don't know if I'll ever read that one again because it's just a little too much. Especially as a person who has a pet, who loves animals and is a pet person. But I did read that one as well. There is this one. This is one of my favorites. And this one I brought on the cruise, actually. The cruise we went on a couple years ago. So okay, I'm gonna move these as well. Okay. Put them back up there. Okay, so next. Okay, we have Salem's Lot, which I intend to read. Oh, damn it. Salem's Lot, which I intend to reread at some point. This is basically Dracula in suburbia, except for so like this writer, which that's one of the key things that Stephen King does. He writes about writers, at least one of his main characters, especially if there's more than one. Like if it's an ensemble, then one of the characters is a writer, either that or the main character is a writer. And he also has a lot of mama's boy. He has a couple mama's boys in his stories, and psychic kids that probably have the shine. It's this writer, and he had left this town of Jerusalem's Lot, when he was a little kid, because he was traumatized by this house, the Marston house, that was supposedly haunted. And he ended up getting stuck in there because he went in there on a dare with his friends, and he got stuck in there, and he saw some things, and that freaked him out, so he ran away. And so he has not been back to his town since, but he's decided now is the time to come back and write about that experience and turn it into a work of fiction. But it turns out that vampires might have bought the Marston house, and the town is being killed. Members of the town are being killed off. And turn into vampires. And now the thing that I always say that gets me every time, that still freaks me out to this day, is when the vampire gets the priest. There's a priest in the story, or minister, or whatever, a preacher, or whatever, in the story, and in the adaptation with Rob Lowe, because there was an adaptation that was made in the 70s, and then one that came out in the 2000s, starring Rob Lowe, and as Ben Mears, our main character. And James Cromwell was the priest, and it had Rutger Hauer as the vampire. And I wish I could remember the actor who played. There's another character in there. Another actor, Donald Sutherland, was also in there too. And Samantha Mathis. But when he gets the priest, that just freaks me out, because like I said, the idea of, especially if you are a religious person, and I think, like, if you understand, even if you aren't religious, I think you understand, what a priest is, and the symbolism of them, what they're supposed to represent, so the idea of them being converted is terrifying. Being turned into a demon, or a slave to a demon, is just, like, they are supposed to be a man of God, or a woman of God, if it's a woman. I know in certain religions it can't be a woman. Like, I think in the Catholic religion it can't be a woman. But just, what they represent. They represent goodness and faith and hope. And just the fact that they get turned is terrifying. And that whole scene when he makes him drink from him, he is just, like, he didn't, like, it would have been a lot easier if he just killed him, but no, he makes him drink from him, and turns him into one of them, and it's just so disturbing and scary to think about. That's the part that stayed most with me. And, I do want to read this again soon. I don't know when, though. But I'm in the middle of my reread of it. So it's like, do I reread a shorter book? Do I start rereading a shorter book, or do I stick to this one? I mean, I almost wanted to bring it with me because we're going on vacation soon, so I don't know. But yes, this is... Okay, let me see if I can get this back on here and not have as much trouble as I did a few minutes ago. And Pennywise, stop it. Stop being naughty. Don't give me that look. Okay, good. Oh, sorry, Joker. Okay. And next, and here it is. Which actually, I should switch Insomnia and Dr. Sleep where I have them. Because the next one is... Next, I have The Shining, about the haunted Overlook Hotel, and this is where we can, like I said, this is where we introduce the concept of shine, and it's so good. And again, we have a child. It's like, what is with Stephen King traumatizing children? Why? Oh, poor little children. You know, I mean, it's just so terrifying, him traumatizing kids, and just like, I just keep thinking him twirling his evil little mustache and be like, haha. And again, another traumatized kid. And Dr. Sleep. You guys are gonna move. Actually, you know what? You guys are gonna move down here because you guys keep getting in the way. And this is the sequel to it. Dr. Sleep. And I read it and I enjoyed it, and I did watch the adaptation. I've seen parts of this adaptation, but I haven't watched the whole thing. The Stanley Kubrick, the one that Stephen King did not like. Now, I've not seen the miniseries that he did. I know he did his own miniseries because he did not like Stanley Kubrick's version of this one. This is the kid all grown up. Danny is all grown up in this one, and there's another kid he learns that has the shine. But yeah, I'm gonna put these two next to each other because this is a sequel to that book. I think I probably put them next to each other. I mean, I probably had, okay, I'll do it in a little bit. Okay, so next, okay, we have, this one I was told, I had heard there's a reference to one of his other books, maybe the Dark Tower series, probably the Dark Tower, because there's always, everything is connected to the Dark Tower. There's a reference to the Dark Tower in this book that I've been told not to, so I've read that you shouldn't read this one until you've read the Dark Tower series. Now, I don't know if I could get away with reading only the first few books in that series, or if I need to read all the books, but this is going to be waiting for a while before I pick it up, because I want to get through the Dark Tower series, and then I'll get to this one, because, like I said, there's a reference. Although all his books are linked. You know, I mean, what I should do is look over, like, a map or something, and see which books are connected and which one is, the order of his books. If you're not going to read them chronologically, like when they were published, then what's the best, how to read it out of order, like, the best order to read it without getting too spoiled. Because, or not spoiled, but getting the references. Like, I should look and see where I can find references. But that should be my part of the project, like looking for references. So this is a guy that has insomnia. That's all I know. And he witnesses something. I think according to the description, he witnesses something that's scary and can get out of his head, possibly. And, so I'm gonna move that one. And, okay, let's organize these because I cannot have, these two will be right next to each other because I need them to be near each other. This one is the sequel to the other. Okay, put that there. And then Insomnia will go here. And then we have, okay, so, if I can get it in there. Okay, and then we have, okay, so, this is another one that I have not read, but I did start reading Under the Dome, which is, damn it, Under the Dome, which is a, I think Haven is influenced by this one a little bit. That one and his other, like, Joyland and stuff. In which Haven is a really great show. If you're a Stephen King fan, you might appreciate it more than other people. Although I think you can still enjoy it even if you're not a King fan. But this is basically all of a sudden this town gets covered in a dome and are trapped. Which I'm trying to, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of his short story, The Mist, where, like, this mist trapped all these people. I think, and they were kind of trapped in a grocery store, I think, which at least they had food and water and stuff. But it reminds me of that a little bit, the idea of being trapped. I'll put that here. And that's one I have not read yet. Okay, and then let's go to another favorite. So we have Needful Things. I absolutely love this one, and I think this one was also adapted as well. This town, there's a creepy old man who sells these, has this little, antique shop, and he makes a deal. He can give people exactly the one thing that they need more than anything, or at least they think they need it, and he makes a deal with them. Instead of giving him money, he will give them something else. They have to do him a favor. And some of the favors seem like little things, not that big of a deal, but then they turn a little dangerous and violent. And it was just so absolutely fun. Again, I love when he explores small towns, like particularly the towns in Maine, like the quirkiness of the dark side of these towns, and how everybody has secrets, and everybody just it's so fascinating exploring small towns. Like, whether you're doing the wholesome version or the scary version, I love exploring small towns. Like, I get the small town cozy, quirky, fun, wholesome when it comes to Hallmark Christmas movies. Although I gotta know, what do they do the rest of the year? Because they have so many Hallmark movies that are where the whole town absolutely loves Christmas. Christmas is their thing. It's like, what do you do the rest of the year? Is, like, your town barren and empty when it's not Christmas time and all of a sudden it comes alive? Which that would be really interesting to do a story like that. Like, where a character gets to town where, like, it's Christmas, they want to trap you there. Like, kind of like how Charlie Manx in Nosferatu would try to take kids to Christmas Land, but anyone who wants Christmas, like, he traps. Maybe they get trapped in a world that celebrates only Christmas. Kind of like there's actually it's Freeform now, but before it became Freeform, it was, I think it was, it was when there was still ABC Family or something, and there was a Christmas movie where this woman is kind of unhappy, and she gets trapped in this, she wants things to be, like, all Christmassy all the time, so she gets trapped in a snow globe, and at first it's all great, of course, but then she realizes that it's annoying because it's Christmas all the time and people are always the same and they're always doing the same thing. Well, you could turn that into a horror thing. Kind of like what they implied in the Krampus movie. but the whole movie would be about, the whole short story could be about people being trapped in a world of Christmas. Like, it make it a little scary. That'd be really fun. Okay, and okay, I got okay, let me go ahead and take, because I've, okay, so out of Stephen King short stories, I've read Full Dark No Stars. I've read that one has 1922 in it, which was adapted recently, not that long ago, on Netflix. And there was one of the other stories was also turned into an adaptation as well, but it was a lot older of an adaptation. And then I've read Everything's Eventually, I got that from the library. 4 Past Midnight, I've read 3 of them, but one of them really only, yeah, I have read 3, but in one of them I've seen the movie adaptation, because, but I've never actually read the story. I started to read it, but then I'm thinking, oh, I've already seen the movie. It didn't feel like anything new. But I am determined to read it at some point. So I need to buy a different copy of it. And the other short story that I read years ago, I want to reread that one. That was The Long Letters. So I'm going to buy 4 Past Midnight at some point. And I like that cover. It has, like, it's blue and the little birds on it, the silhouettes of the birds, I think. So I want to get that one. But I read The Sundog is one of them, and then, I can't remember what the other one was. Oh, the Library Policeman. I always forget that. I don't know why I can't remember that name, because that was one of my favorites out of all those 4. And then there was one more short story collection I'm trying to, I think, but I also am working my way through this one. This is the one that has the mist in it. This is the first one, and then it also, and I've read quite a few of these now. Let's see, which ones have I read? Other than The Mist, I've read Here There Be Tigers, The Monkey, King Rose Up, Miss Todd Shortcut, The Jaunt, The Wedding Gig, Paranoid Chant, which I need to reread, The Raft. I really like The Raft. That was the last one I read. I want to read WordPresses of Gods, The Man Who Would Not Shake Hands, Beach World, Reaper's Image, Nona for Owen, Survivors Type, Uncle Otto's Truck, Milkman Morning Deliveries, Milkman number 1, Big Wheels, A Tale of the Laundry Game, Milkman number 2, Grandma, The Battle of the Flexible Bullet, The Reach, Notes, which I don't know if that's a short story. That might just be like our phone. I don't know if that's a short story or notes on this collection. But, so the last one I read was The Raft. And, so far it's good. I do have mixed feelings, but I like it better than Full Dark No Stars. Which I feel like Full Dark No Stars I didn't relate to it as much. Okay, so there's that one. And then the last Stephen King book I had that I physically copy where I'm not donating it is this one, The Bag of Bones, which it was adapted. Another one that was adapted, it has Pierce Brosnan is the main character. Our main character, of course, he's a writer. It's basically about this guy who his wife died, and every year he's still grieving. It's been a few years, but he's still grieving, and he goes to the place that they would go every summer, like a lake house, and he's trying to write. But then his wife's ghost warns him about this woman he's interested in moving on with, and her daughter are being haunted, like they're being threatened. I think Okay, so it's the woman's father is trying to take her daughter away. Okay, so which I like that. I like because a lot of times in these stories it's an ex-husband or abusive current husband, but it's actually the grandfather, the little girl's grandfather, and the father of the woman that our Mike is interested in. I like that. That's a little different, I think. But I've also read so another one I just remembered this for some reason this one kind of reminded me of Lissy's Story was another one I read. It was recently also adapted. Now I don't have access to that one. I think it's on like Hulu or Apple TV or something, and I don't have that. We don't have access to that, but it's a story about a woman whose husband, I think again her husband was a writer, and she's trying to, because he is a very famous writer, and she was always touring with him. And he had a couple crazy fans, and he died 2 years ago, so she's still grieving for him. And all of a sudden, she finds that this person approaches her wanting her husband's one of his manuscripts of an unpublished work, and he starts threatening her. And think like the guy in Secret Window where he was like, "You stole my story." Kind of like that guy. It makes you think of that guy. I don't know why I'm pointing this book. It's not that book. This is not Lizzie's Story. But he goes after her, and then she finds out that her husband's work, there might be more involved, and there might be some supernatural elements. In fact, she might find some information about a world that he used to hide in, a literal place that he would used to go, but it's not of this world. Like, you have to be transported in your mind to that place. And I think there's a supernatural monster involved, so it's kind of like takes mostly place in the real world and has real world issues, like for dealing with grief and then after your loved one dies, finding out some secrets about them that they might not have told you everything, and trying to unravel those secrets and dealing with that. And a woman having to defend herself. But it also has a supernatural element, which I personally like. I know not everybody likes that, but I really enjoy that. And then I've also read The Dark Half, which was about a writer who he had created an alter ego, a pseudonym who writes different types of stories than he normally writes that did a lot better than his work. But then one day, because the pseudonym, this alter ego, and these stories were not helping him, he decides to, with encouragement from his agents and managers, he decides to stop writing this character. And then, which I think The Dark Half was also in response to people exposing him as Richard Bachman, exposing Stephen King. But when he decides to kill off the character, I don't know if the character or the alter ego that he created becomes a reality, and he does not like that our main character is wanting to kill him off. So he slowly starts killing anyone who encouraged him to kill him off, who were involved, and slowly hunting down our main character. Which, it's a cool concept. It's creepy and it's cool and unsettling. Not my favorite, but I definitely like it better than some of the other ones I've read. Like, I've read Revival, which I thought was okay. It's another story that kind of explores religion and having faith. Like, this young preacher starts to lose faith in God after he loses his wife and son get killed. And he kind of goes crazy, and he's trying to prove if the afterlife is real or not, and he is very obsessed. And our main character, our narrator, we see his life and how he slowly connected to this guy, this young preacher, and how they keep crossing paths. Which actually, as much as I didn't love that book, I kind of, thinking about it now, I wouldn't mind seeing an adaptation of that one. That would be a cool concept, like, to watch on screen. Like, even a Lifetime movie or something. That's what it felt like. It felt like a Lifetime movie, but where our main characters were all male, were mostly men. Like the male equivalent to a Lifetime movie, basically. And then I've read, I just had, like I said, I read Pet Sematary. I still like that one, but I don't know if I can handle it anymore, so I decided to put it in my donation pile. And then I've read, like I said, Revival. I'm trying to think of what else I've read. Rose Matter. I read that one. That was, I think that's it. I think that's all the books I've read by him. Rose Matter. Which is basically about a woman whose husband is abusive, husband or boyfriend, and she finally gets the courage to run away from him, and she ends up in this place where these women take her in and protect her and shelter her and help her learn to defend herself and be strong. And there's this whole metaphor of seeing her abusive husband as like a bull or a minotaur. Like, it kind of uses the Greek myth of the minotaur, Odysseus and the Minotaur. Or I think it's Odysseus. No, it's not. I don't think it's Odysseus. I cannot remember which Greek figure was fighting the Minotaur, but Jason. There's so many. I still don't know all of them. I need to catch up on my Greek myths. But whoever thought the Minotaur and the whole labyrinth and stuff, there's a lot. There is that, inspiration from that whole myth, but with a main character but exploring like women and with a feminist twist to it. It was really good. It wasn't the best, but it was still, I was still entertained by it. It's a very heartbreaking story. So that is all the Stephen King I've read, and then the ones I own. If you are a Stephen King fan, what of his books have you read, and which ones do you want to read in the future? Feel free to share in the comments below, and if you own any of them, which ones do you have, whether you've read them or not? Because obviously I haven't read all mine. I've just slowly accumulated them. Although I have read, but obviously I have read some of them, so. Anyway, so if you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, click subscribe if you can't, click the bell notification below if you want to be notified when I post my latest videos. And I hope you are enjoying your reading. And I will talk to you all later. Alright, bye.